You're about to learn why Prince Andrew's address book just lost its most powerful entry. In the next few minutes, you'll get the real reasons behind his eviction from Royal Lodge, the exact timeline ticking down, why Norfolk locals are already pushing back, how this ends a 16-year cohabitation with Sarah Ferguson, what happens to palace art, and yes, those 72 teddy bears, and the money question everyone is whispering. Who pays for Andrew's next life? Start with the order. A firm deadline. Surrender the lease. Vacate Royal Lodge by the end of January. Not a suggestion, not a negotiation, an instruction. The message is clear. This chapter is closing, and it's closing on the Crown's clock. Andrew has already surrendered the lease, and the window to move is just 3 months. Sounds generous until you remember what Royal Lodge actually is. 30 rooms, 2 decades of possessions, and a personal museum of a complicated royal life that now has to be boxed, barcoded, and sent somewhere smaller. Understand the scale. This isn't a regular move. It's a controlled extraction. Every painting on those walls that belongs to the Royal Collection Trust must be itemized and removed. The furniture with provenance has to be logged and routed. Even the infamous teddy bear collection, 72 in total, arranged just so, has to be carefully documented and transported without becoming a tabloid photo op. Each object is a memory. Each memory is a headline. Each headline is a risk the palace no longer wants to carry. Now look at the destination.
Sandringham.
Smaller, unnamed, and intentionally vague. Not Windsor, not London, not anywhere he'd be easily seen. It's proximity with boundaries. Close enough for oversight, far enough for silence. This is internal exile. Keep him in the family's orbit, remove him from the public square. The optics are deliberate. If you embarrass the institution shrinks your stage. But there's friction already. Reports in Norfolk say locals don't want the circus. They don't want the scanners, the long lenses, or the quiet anxiety of a community linked to scandal. This matters because the monarchy draws power from consent, soft power, local goodwill, seasonal tradition. Resistance from residents is a reminder that reputations don't move with the furniture. They arrive first and linger longest. Now to Sarah Ferguson. After 16 years of unusual cohabitation post-divorce, she isn't going to Sandringham. She has arranged her own accommodation. That ends a rare royal arrangement that somehow worked for them. 2 exes who stayed allies, parents, and weathered scandal together under one roof. Separate addresses mean separate routines, and separate routines mean fewer informal checks on Andrew's state of mind. Sources split. Some say she's relieved to reclaim independence. Others say she's devastated to watch a shared life dismantled. Maybe both are true. Independence costs. So does loyalty. You can't tell this story without the backdrop. The Epstein Association. The denial of allegations. The catastrophic Newsnight interview in 2019 that turned reputational damage into reputational collapse. Since then, the logic at the palace has hardened. Streamline, modernize, remove liabilities. For a monarch trying to protect the institution's long game, the short game is ruthless. If the brand bleeds, apply a tourniquet. If the tourniquet fails, remove the limb. That brings us to the line setting social media on fire. 22 years without rent. The claim is explosive because it distills a sprawling debate into a single number. The reality is layered: leases, obligations, maintenance, capital works, who paid for what and when, but the optics are awful. In a cost-of-living era, rent-free in a 30-room mansion is not surviving the court of public opinion. Whether the fine print complicates it or not, perception is the product, and the product is already sold. Now, the daughters. Beatrice and Eugenie didn't choose their father's headlines, but they live inside their echoes. Royal Lodge is a childhood map. Birthdays, Christmases, family photos where the light looked kinder than the press ever did. Watching that home close is not just logistical. It's the final blow to an illusion that the past could be preserved if they kept the doors closed and the blinds half drawn. The doors are open now. The move says what no statement needed to. This is over. Let's talk logistics, because logistics are where power hides. Catalog the art. Box the papers. Secure the gifts from foreign dignitaries. Clear the wardrobes. Seal the archives. Move teams arrive at dawn and whisper in the hallway. The silence is practical. The speed is strategic. Weeks for artwork. Days for personal items. Hours for rooms that used to host people who no longer call. And always the spreadsheet. The list of what goes, what stays, what returns to the crown, and what follows Andrew into a life that fits into fewer rooms. What does Sandringham mean strategically? Geography is policy. The farther from London, the smaller the stage. The smaller the stage, the fewer the collisions with press and public. Norfolk is ritual ground for the royals, Christmas, shoots, the kind of continuity that gives the monarchy its seasonal heartbeat. Placing Andrew there sends two signals at once. You're still family, you're no longer frontline. Containment dressed as care money. The most radioactive question in the entire saga. If he didn't pay rent at Royal Lodge under the terms of that lease, what does he pay at Sandringham? Is there rent? Is there a service charge? Who covers maintenance? If public funds are involved, does that end the debate or inflame it? If private funds are used, whose private funds? In the absence of precise answers, narratives rush in, privilege without duty versus duty without mercy. The truth is probably transactional, numbers on paper, redacted lines, a settlement that avoids court and guarantees silence. What happens to Sarah's role now? Separate residence, separate story. She remains publicly resilient, professionally busy, personally complicated. Her proximity to Andrew softened his edges in the press. Without that, the image hardens again. Yet the bond remains. Two people who could never make the marriage work, but made the friendship last. It's rare in royal life to see something so human refuse to be erased. Even so, new addresses change old rhythms. Familiar rooms stop taking calls. Zoom out to the monarchy's playbook. This is consequence management. You cannot modernize with one hand and shelter scandal with the other. You pick. King Charles is picking. The lesson is not subtle. When the institution is in danger, sentiment is a luxury. That stance earns praise for backbone and criticism for coldness. Both can be true. Leadership at this altitude is a choice between imperfect outcomes. The crown is betting that the public will reward boundary setting over brother protecting. What are the decision points from here? First, compliance. Does Andrew go quietly, supervise the packing, sign the inventory sheets, and vanish into a smaller life? Or does he resist briefings, sympathetic friends, soft-focused counter-narratives about unfairness and family? Second, permanence. Is Sandringham an endpoint or a holding pattern? Third, voice. Does Sarah speak? And if she does she frame this as closure, compassion, or quiet fury at how the man she defended has been managed out of the frame? Here's what to watch in the next 8 to 12 weeks. 1. The pace of removal. If the art moves first, the palace is minimizing risk before sentiment. 2. The messaging from Norfolk. If locals keep pushing back, expect even tighter privacy, unnamed residents, controlled access, fewer glimpses. 3. Paperwork leaks. Any detail about lease terms or finances will reset the narrative in an instant. 4. Beatrice and Eugenie's body language at public events. Distance speaks. So does silence. Now the part nobody wants to dwell on. Legacy. Royal Lodge has been more than a roof. It was once the Queen Mother's home, a thread from the past into the present. Andrew's tenure turned it into something else, a case study in what happens when personal scandal collides with institutional survival. When the gates finally shut behind the last removal van, that address will stop being a place and start being a lesson. For future generations inside the House of Windsor, the lesson is simple. Status is rented. Reputation pays the mortgage. So, is this justice or cruelty? Protecting the brand or punishing the man? Maybe it's both. Maybe it has to be. Institutions don't do forgiveness the way families do. They do risk management. And when risk becomes identity, removal becomes policy. The tragedy is how inevitable it looks in hindsight. The relief, for the crown at least, is how decisive it looks in the present.